Well, hello, you bearded bastards, and welcome back once again to Locum Cor Zugab Lolokokun Obak, Spearcavern, the grand granite shrine of pillars. And isn't that grand? My goodness, would you have a look at this? We are still recovering from that terrible heartbreak of not being able to slay that beast down in the caverns. But as you can see here, while we were doing that, the dwarves were working away quite hard over here in Spearcavern proper. Isn't that looking nice? We are getting there. Currently taking a little break from the mining, just to smooth up the walls and stuff. It's got to be done at some point. But yeah, looking pretty darn nice. At this particular juncture, we have been here now for, well, actually it's mid-spring right now, so 3 years. 3 full years here in the fortress, and all we've killed is an alligator. We don't have much to show for our efforts here, do we, dwarves? As it stands, we are utter failures as monster slayers. Though that being said, it doesn't seem to be getting anybody particularly down. The dwarves of Spearcavern are mighty satisfied with their lives. The only one who's really bothered by our lack of hunting is Tinny, the one who set up this expedition in the first place. But she is being pretty relaxed about the idea. After all, if the dwarves are happy, then that's all that really matters, in a way. But that's not what we were shooting for here as our goal. I guess our goals are twofold. We want to live modest lives here away from the hustle and bustle of the city, while also going down in legend, carving our own place for ourselves, you know? Certainly we got the humble living part down, no problem at all. But in order to go down in legend, we're gonna have to kill monsters, which means, damn it, we're gonna have to do something about that thing in the caves. And if ballistas won't work, then we're gonna have to use strength of dwarven arms. That's our current line of thinking anyways. We're gonna have to fight that thing. And so we have some preparations to make, and one of the big ones is going to be our armor, though it won't be much of a problem, I think. We only have our 7 dwarves, and we do have access to plenty of steel, so the crab is getting right on that, making some breastplates currently, and being interrupted by giant buzzards again and again. That flock that was pestering our merchants lately has still not moved away. It's still flying around all over the place, getting really annoying too, but there's not really a whole heck of a lot we could do about the situation, except I suppose move our workshops underground, which would be smart, but they're already here. We'll get to it eventually, but for now I think we just kind of have to deal with this. To be perfectly honest, I don't know what these miserable bastards want. Food, I would assume, but if that was the case, I wish they would just grab it and get the hell out of here. We have plenty of food, we could spare some. Go. Off with you. Annoying. I half wish they would actually come down and try to attack us. I think we could kill them relatively easily, but as it is, they're just flying around all over the place. They get scared of our dwarves, they scare the dwarves. Just get the hell out of here already. Kind of over it. Ah, damn it. Had to say it, didn't I? Alright, it looks like a giant buzzard swooped down and attacked Gutter at the top of that stairway that leads down into our fortress. By the time I realized, the thing had already bit him in his arm, causing some pretty decent damage. But luckily it looks like Wisp jumped to action and just started punching the hell out of the thing. Really saved Gutter's butt, I think. She didn't have her spear at the moment, but she still went wild on the thing. Punching and scratching like a wild beast. Well, good job there, Wispy, thank you very much. And as for Gutter, it looks like his right upper arm is cut open right now, and his ability to grasp is somewhat impaired, and he has some sensory nerve damage too. That's not going to help him. And you know what's really not going to help is having your hospital bed absolutely covered with dogs and a chicken. A little unsanitary, I'm thinking, but it could be worse, I suppose. Now, of course it's Gutter who got injured, our chief medical dwarf. Nobody else in the fortress knows anything about taking care of dwarves' health, which is a bit of a problem, but we have to get this addressed. And to do that, we're gonna need a doctor. There are no good choices here, but we do have a volunteer, and that's going to be Moral. Pop. She seems willing to take on the task, and I'm sure she's going to do a fine job at it. I just wish we had better healthcare accommodations. We don't really have all that much right now. Hell, as stupid as it is, we don't even have access to clean water. Not that we've needed it. Yeah, she's getting that wound dressed as we speak, using some wool cloth. That is one step of the process, getting it nice and covered up. But we still have to get it cleaned out. An infection could kill Gutter. That is a real threat, and so we're going to do something about that right now. We have to. Okay, that took an awful lot longer than I thought it would. I don't know if the dwarves are just kind of panicking because they're worried about Gutter or what's going on. But the dwarves aren't really doing what we want them to do very quickly. Nobody is. Well, they weren't anyways. At this point, we have everything in order, but it's been like an entire season. If you have a look over here, you can see our new well. This is going to be a source of clean water fed from the aquifer above. See the well right here, and then this lever right here, and then this tube right here that leads upwards to the aquifer. Now water is leaking down from the aquifer, down to this level right here, where we have a floodgate, and if we pull this lever, see, this is exactly what we're talking about. I don't know why Queen Bee here just threw a log down the well, but she did. Anyways, okay, so she pulled that lever, and now if we look down here, this floodgate's going to open, just like that, and that water that was in the aquifer is going to get dumped down into where the well is. We have this floodgate in place just so the thing doesn't overflow and flood the entire fortress. But yeah, there we go, fresh water. We'll have to close this in a bit, but for now it's fine. And as well as that nice clean water, we also have a soap maker workshop up here now, and we are getting some nice soap made. But Gutter is back up on his feet now. He's out of the hospital. He's all healed up. He thinks he's good to go. This is concerning. Apparently his wounds were cleaned with the stagnant water from the ponds out in the swamp. We were really trying to get that to not happen, and it still might be fine. I'm really hoping that's the case, obviously. But again, there was a lot of confusion in the fortress, and I think one of the buckets of water that he was supposed to be drinking was used to clean him instead. And don't ask me why they were trying to get him to drink some stagnant swamp water instead of proper dwarven alcohol, but I don't know, it's a whole thing. Not much we could do about it now, but at least we finally have access to clean water and soap. I'm just really hoping he doesn't get an infection. We're going to keep an eye on him, but I don't think there's much more other than that we could do. We're going to have to learn some discipline here, dwarves. And one way I'm thinking we can learn some discipline in a hurry is through some military training, something that the dwarves have been requesting we do for quite some time now. We've just had so much on our plates that it's been tough to find the time. That being said, we do have the crab over here busy at work making some more armor for the dwarves, and cleaning up some dwarves' messes too. This is what we're talking about. We set up a work order to make some breastplates, and someone besides the crab went and made a breastplate. I don't know who made the thing, but the crab is over here melting it back down into steel. He could do much better work than that, and he will be getting to that shortly. At this point we only have helmets and spears, and we still need breastplates, gauntlets, boots, shields, and greaves. An awful lot, but we're really buckling down now. We have to get this done. And aside from that armor, we're also going to need a new barracks. We have a barracks up top already, but it's not great. It's kind of crowded in here. We have a hospital, smelter. It's a little cramped, And so we have this new place dug out right over here. It's in the tunnel that connects the cobalt room to the caves. Now the idea is that we can open up the door down to the cavern, and whatever terrible creatures out there can just kind of run in, and we can cut them off here. So this is going to be a barracks and a staging area, pretty much. It's pretty plain right now, but I think it's going to get the job done. We need to get training too. There's so much on our plates right now, it's getting kind of ridiculous. Luckily though, all the dwarves are still incredibly happy. There's not one single whisper of dissent amongst them, even though we are all working our beards to the chin. Idrath shines her glorious golden light brighter on Spearcavern than anywhere else in Athira Etha. Of that we are assured. Now then, continuing on with our work, and having a look down here in Spearcavern proper, we could see Tinny and Pop working away still, getting these bedrooms all cleaned out. We are almost there, my dwarves. In fact, it should be done in just a moment, really. Just have to get to this one last room here, and as you can see, it's coming right along. Excellent work, you two. Tinny has really learned a lot about mining from Pop. Pop is now a legendary miner, by the way. A master of her craft. And I imagine Tinny will be shortly, too. We should try to make them both a couple of really nice picks. Kinda commemorate the event. Of course, they're both using pretty crappy picks right now. I think it'd be almost an insult to give them good picks at this point after doing all this work, but, well, no matter. We can do it anyways. Having a look at the date right now, it is the 12th of limestone. And as you can see, those dwarven traders last year left all their crap here in our trade depot, which I feel pretty bad about. But I mean, what are we going to do? It's giant buzzards. We got no control over them. I should also mention too that during that period where the dwarves were kind of confused about their orders and the chain of command and all that sort of stuff, the humans arrived again. That was in the summer. They arrived and we were so worried about Gutter that we didn't deal with them at all. They kind of showed up with all their wares here to trade and we just pretty much ignored them, which is horrible of us, We got stuff going on though. Not much we could do. Probably for the best we skipped over it, frankly. Now, the dwarven traders should also be arriving any time now. And we're probably going to ignore them too. We have too much to do, and we don't really need to trade anything. We should be fine. That being said, those traders that got scared away last year, a lot of them are still here. I don't know why. Like, if you look over here, there's a merchant and a mule stuck up in this tree. I don't know if this is that same mule from last year that was stuck in a tree. I guess it probably is, right? I mean, it's a mule in a tree. I don't know why they don't leave. They haven't been here this whole time. They've kind of been like scurrying around out in the swamp. They'll come back to the depot. They'll go back up into a tree. It's a whole thing. And I don't know why it's a thing at all. Or like down here we have this other dwarf. Her name's Dodak, and she's one of the caravan guards. She's been fighting the giant buzzards from time to time. Whenever they come swooping down at her, she gives them a stab. And she has even killed at least one of the things. She is pretty handy with that spear. I don't know what's going on exactly, but I have a distinct feeling that this dwarf here is a little bullheaded and maybe wants to claim some glory, much like that Marks dwarf that was killed by Rofa last year. I'm thinking those merchants are refusing to leave because their one last remaining guard here is being so stubborn. They have a long way to go to get home, and if their guard's not coming with them then, well, I couldn't blame them for not wanting to leave, in a way. Yeah, we have the 2 merchants, their beasts of burden, and a guard. All wandering around. The merchants are making camp. We've invited them in, but they won't come in. You'd think they'd break down and accept it after a year, but here we are. I'm hoping they shove off eventually. They gotta get home. Oh well, they haven't been a problem, so if they want to stay out here, that's completely fine. Anywho, back to fortress business, and we could see our quickly evolving well room here. This was our dolomite mine before, and then it kind of became our siege workshop, and now it's just our workshop and well chamber. It's all temporary, but we have managed to get our workshops down here, which is excellent because we have an awful lot to do, and those interruptions were getting to be a bit much. If we have a look over here, we could see Gutter in a clothier workshop. We're going to make him our fortress clothier, and he's getting right to work making some socks and tunics and trousers, all kinds of stuff, all made out of the cloth that we traded for previously. And then we have Boggy over here, working with leather. He's making some boots and gloves. Boggy is going to be our fortress leather worker, for now anyways. We figured we'd keep these tasks a bit more focused on a single dwarf, just so they can gain skill a bit faster, you know? Sure, we could have everybody doing it and get it done quickly, but we want some high quality clothing here. And it's not like these two are doing that much these days anyways. Gutter's siege antics are kinda done for now, and Boggy's cooked enough food and brewed enough drink to last us for another 5 years, I think. So yeah, we're all set. Gutter is feeling pretty good, by the way, too. No signs of infection. We're incredibly happy to see that, obviously. Thinking he probably should have made more of a stink about it when Pop was getting him clean with that swamp water. As a medical dwarf, he knows that's not the right way to go about things. But maybe he felt a little weird about correcting his girlfriend, you know? Though there are times when you have to bring that sort of stuff up there, Gutter, hoping he's gonna be fine. He's a tough dwarf. What's a little infection anyways? Yeah, hang in there, buddy. Anywho, we're just gonna keep picking away at our tasks here. There's plenty to do. Plenty of armor, plenty of clothing, and a whole lot of work to do on our underground citadel. Keep at it, dwarves. We'll be hunting before you know it. Okay, and here we are. A chunk of time has passed. Maybe another season or so, but trust me, nothing exciting has happened during that time. As I said, we were just kind of working on armor, getting clothing, little fortress chores, you know, and everything is remaining fairly steady. At this point, we made all that clothing we had set up to make, and so all of our dwarves are dressed in newly created fortress fineries, and I imagine this new clothing should serve them well for a number of years. Here's hoping anyways, though we should come up with a stockpile just so we don't run into issues in the future. It'd be nice to have a selection of clothing to pick from, you know? Back up on the surface, halfway through winter, we had realized that those merchants never arrived this year. The dwarven merchants. And yet those ones that were camping out were still all here. I don't know how they've been surviving here exactly, but I got a feeling they've been picking out of the food that they've brought here and have loaded into our trade depot. And so just to encourage them to get the hell out of here, we destroyed the trade depot and claimed everything that was in it. Might seem a little cruel, but if they're not going to come into our fortress and just kind of camp out in the swamp, then, I don't know, this might be the best solution, right? Plus we could kind of use some of these supplies. Hate to be greedy, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? They have all left now, except for this one donkey up in a tree. Not too sure what's going on with it, but it should move out shortly, I'm thinking. As for other news, okay, we had undergone a pretty extensive project over here with our dogs. Remember, we were trying to come up with maybe a breeding program to come up with a new breed of dog or something, right? We had that one good-looking dog, Sky Dog. We haven't touched on her all that much because there really hasn't been that much to report. We had her down here as well as a couple of other dogs, but they haven't really done that much. Skydog won't have puppies, seemingly. And so we've kind of had to modify our breeding stock over here and just kind of take passable dogs and put them in there. And I don't know, we have several dogs that we're trying to get to breed right now, and it's not really working out the best. But we're just going to kind of keep them together and see what happens. We're going to have to cull the ones that aren't top of the line, but hopefully in time this stock will increase in quality. And then maybe we can start to get really fancy with these Lemlornatigs, breed them for coat colors and whatnot. That'd be fun. But seemingly it's a long way off. Don't get excited. And yes, we are keeping the dogs inside now. And as you can see, they are inside our dug out underground fortress now. Completely dug out. We got 1, 2, 3 full levels all dug out. The walls are all smooth. Looking pretty good. Obviously not in a livable state quite yet. But you can see we've started to get to work smoothing out most of the walls. It's going to look real nice when it's done, but it's a ways off. It's fine though. The dwarves are still pretty happy. More on that in a second. But yeah, if you have a look at this room down here in the southeast, you can see the floor is all smoothed up. And there are the 2 levels too. We just have to get it furnished now, maybe get some windows in there. There's a lot to do. We want our dwarves to have some palatial estates. I'd say they deserve it, especially considering how hard they've all been training. That's right, you probably noticed the dwarves haven't been scampering around like usual during that segment. And that's because they're all down here, training in the barracks. All of them. And don't they look just formidable? Every single one of our dwarves is now fully armored and has a nice spear as well. They have the armor, they have the weapons, just gotta work on that skill now. When we started training just now, they were all competent spear dwarves already, which is not bad, but we should probably keep training until they're all skilled at least, and maybe even a little bit higher still. Remember, we want to fight that thing out in the caves, and we're going to need as much skill as we can muster. Better safe than sorry. Oop, hold up, oh damn it. A little bit of an issue up here on the surface. So it is summer again. Summer has rolled around and the humans have arrived to trade, but we have not rebuilt our trade depot yet, so they don't really know where to go. Just a moment, sorry about that. Okay, so we're gonna go to where our old depot was and try to get one built underneath in our former dog pen. It's covered with mushrooms and stuff, but it's probably gonna be fine, right? Yeah, we'll get right to that. It's gonna smell a bit doggy down here, traders. I'm sorry about that. Welcome, welcome. We're gonna have to find some stuff to trade too. Maybe just kind of pick around in this pile up here, see if we can find something good. And we have a bunch of slightly used dwarven clothing too that you might be interested in. I mean, it's not gonna fit you, but maybe you can like recycle it or something. You know, I've got a pretty good feeling it's gonna be a good trade for both of us. Okay, and that's gonna do it right there. We were able to get an astonishing amount, even some new instruments. Very cool. Good work, Gutter. Really had to get this trade done, mostly so we didn't leave them hanging for 2 years in a row. I'm very glad we were able to do that. Anywho, regarding our broker, Gutter, I had touched on it earlier, but all of our dwarves are pretty darn happy. But Gutter's mood is going downhill quickly, for a number of reasons. We talked to him, and he seems to want all sorts of things. But mostly his problems seem to stem from not having enough time to relax and talk with his friends, and to not being able to fight. He wants to fight. He doesn't want to train. He wants to actually fight something. Which, you know, it's fair enough. And by the way, another one of his wants was he wanted to wander around outside for a bit, and that's what he's doing right now. Gathering these plants here. You know, we figured we'd get him some time outside, maybe that would rectify some of his issues. But like, some of his complaints don't make any sense. Apparently he wants to be able to craft something, but he just made all that clothing. And speaking of clothing, he's pretty upset about wearing some tattered clothing lately, but we just replaced his entire outfit with some brand new stuff. Maybe get it in perspective, my friend. Fortress management can be a bit difficult sometimes. So yes, we're going to have to get him some time to just kind of relax for a bit. And because he wants to hang out with the other dwarves, that means we're going to have to give everyone a little break. Another feast, I suppose. It has been quite some time. But then we're going to have to fight something. And unless you sprout wings, you're not going to be fighting the giant buzzards up here. Our only option is that thing down in the caves, really. And that kind of sucks, because I don't think we're quite ready yet. But yes, okay, it looks like Gutter's desire for wanderings have been fulfilled. And so now we're down here having him make some crafts. Just a couple little wooden crafts. Oh, there he goes, okay. That did seemingly fulfill his desire to practice a craft. Very nice. And while we're here, let's see what he came out with. So we made a couple of rings and a couple of figurines as well. The figurines are of a dwarf, fairly generic. And the other is a figurine of Idrath Wealth Jewels, our primary god. The thing is that she looks offended in this depiction right here. We've got a good idea why he did that too. Another of his desires are that he wants to pray to Idrath. Maybe he thinks she feels offended because of his lack of worship. Yeah, a lot of dwarves want to worship. We don't have a proper chapel up yet. We could take care of that easy enough though. And to prove it, down here in the Cobalt Room we are already feasting. Getting those social needs taken care of. But... ta-da! Look at that. The Cobalt Room is no longer a tavern, and is in fact now a temple. It does not look any different whatsoever, but Tinny has made a clear affirmation that that is now the fact. And so worship till your heart's content, dwarves. It is a bit shameful we don't have a real chapel up yet, but it'll come in time. Idrath's given us so much already that it's only right. But for now, yes, this should do the trick to get that worship need fulfilled for everyone. Whoop, who the hell are you? Looks like we have a human here. A visitor. A self-professed beast hunter. From the oceanic realm, here to visit our temple, I guess. They appear to already be leaving. Maybe somebody mentioned the idea that we're going to come up with a temple at some point to those traders who just left. I don't see why the hell else they'd come and check out our temple so quickly after we made it. But yeah, they just kind of took a peek in, and looks like they're ready to leave as we speak. They are a beast hunter, but they don't look to be equipped as such. They're just wearing clothing. My goodness, I'm not sure what kind of beasts you typically deal with, but we have a pretty bad one down there. Well, may your travels be safe. Looks like she spoke with Boggy briefly when she was here, and according to what she said, she's the master of beasts for the oceanic realm. Not too sure what that title entails exactly, but sounds pretty darn fancy. Maybe she'll come back sometime, huh? We did briefly talk about opening up our fortress to outsiders. Maybe that time's coming. Who's to say? We got bigger fish to fry right now. By which I mean small, boring fish. We're just really trying to get our needs fulfilled at the moment, and then we can get back to training. I think we're getting a better grasp at what our dwarves need to be happy, though, which is excellent. Just every once in a while we have to go in and micromanage a bit, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Actually, one cool thing that the crab did recently to try to help with our needs is make a set of rings, one for each of our dwarves. 7 rings, made out of the most precious metal that we have access to currently, steel. We kind of put them out here and are hoping that the dwarves each take one. And I don't know, maybe they will eventually. But you know, sometimes people don't like the way a ring feels on their finger. And so both the crab and queen bee haven't taken a ring yet, but everyone else has. But you know, they keep picking them up, putting them back down, getting a feel for them, I guess. Maybe one day. Okay, so we have taken care of a bunch of our needs already. One of the needs we still have to take care of though is fighting. And in order to fight, we have to train. And so it's mid-autumn right now. Let's see how far we can get into it by the time winter arrives. We should be looking pretty good, I think. Get to it, dwarves. Okay, alright, we're looking pretty good now. They're now all skilled spear dwarves, and some are even talented, which is excellent. On top of that, they're getting better at dodging, and they're learning to use their armor more effectively too, and their shields as well, which is arguably more important than learning to use their spears. So we're looking really good now, actually, I think. That being said, I fear that we can no longer find justification for not opening up the caves. And so, well, dwarves, it's gonna feel awfully anticlimactic if we open up those caves, that thing comes up here and murders us all. So maybe just a quick prayer to Idrath here. Most esteemed goddess, wealthiest of the pantheon, please grant us your audience. Lend our meager souls but a pittance of your infinite wealth. We beg this of you in your most holy of names. Grace us with the wealth of victory. Well now, dwarves, we've done it. Praise Idrath, we were successful. It was a relatively quick battle, but it certainly was dense. It opened up with the crab stabbing it in the leg, and then it attacked the crab who dodged away. The thing then grabbed one of our dwarves and threw them by their toe, and then just started thrashing around wildly, punching. Gutter was able to stab it in its hand, but then it bit Pop right in her foot. And cards on the table, it was a pretty vicious bite. It seems to have somehow gotten past her armor and penetrated her flesh, which is more than a bit worrying because having a look at that thing's teeth, they're fashioned much like a rattlesnake's. They're like syringes. I'm just hoping her body can fight off the effects of that thing's venom. A bit worrying, but we're going to take the best care of her that we can. Back to the combat overview. Apparently the dwarves got a bit more vicious after seeing Pop getting bitten like that. And it looks like they skewered the hell out of it, and it took a big hit to its neck too. It continued fighting for a little bit and even bit somebody else in their lower body, but it looks like a hit from Gutter to its lower body tore its guts. Gutter, go figure. But then it was actually put down by Tinny herself. She jammed the thing right in its skull with her spear, tearing its brain. Wonderful work, Tinny. And good job, everyone. Well, except for Boggy, who we only just realized was not included in that fighting. He was sleeping the whole time. Nobody woke him up. Well, that's okay. We didn't need him from the looks of it. But now, my portly pal, we're going to put you to work doing something with this thing's corpse. Or not, I guess? Never mind. Oh, pish posh, you're being a baby, Boggy. I'm sure it'd taste great if you just prepared it right. Affront to dwarven kind. What are you talking about? Too humanoid? No, it's a horse. Obviously. Well, I suppose it doesn't actually have blood. Instead, there's like black goo. And I suppose it was sealed in a stone cavity underground for the past thousands of years. Right, yeah, okay, so it's not an animal. Fine, we won't eat it. We gotta do something with it, though. But what? We'll try to figure something out before it starts stinking too bad. But in the meantime, up here in our hospital, we can see Pop, who's getting taken care of. She's already been cleaned up with some nice soap and some clean water as well, which is excellent. And it looks like Boggy is on his way to dress her wound, which is strange because he's not our chief medical dwarf. Gutter is. I was hoping he would take care of her, but well, here we are. There we go. Back up on your feet there, Pop. I'm sure this is going to be fine, really. We've come a long way since Gutter's wounding back in the day. Clean water, we have soap. Just still really hoping that venom doesn't have some sort of ill effect on Pop. But I think she's in the clear now. We're going to keep an eye on her, clearly. But yeah, feeling pretty good about it. Hang in there, Pop. You're doing great. And just a quick update about Gutter and his infection. There are no signs of infection whatsoever. We were worried about an infection, but that has not come to pass, thankfully. Very exciting. But more exciting than that even, actually that's probably not more exciting, but it's still pretty exciting. Out here, we have access to the caves once more. How's that, dwarves? We can get back out here finally. A wonderful, sprawling labyrinth of tunnels, some sections of which have not been explored by our dwarves yet. I'll tell you what, why don't we get out there? We've been excited to explore for quite some time. Let's get straight to it. First off, we have this southeastern corner down here. Let's go take a gander down there first. All the dwarves rushing down to the barracks, grabbing their gear, getting ready. Seeing a lot of prepared meals just kind of laying around on the ground. You want to take one or two of those, don't just leave them lying around. Boggy worked hard to make those for you. Goodness gracious. Actually, having looked down in the tunnels, we could see Boggy leading the charge. Not going to be left behind sleeping this time. Getting right out there. He's by himself right now. But it doesn't look like there's that much out here, so nothing to worry about. Well, you could continue a little farther. Just gotta keep your wits about you, my friend. Well, not seeing a whole hell of a lot out here. Just some random desiccated carcasses. Giant moles, giant rats. All most likely killed by that demon. Of course, one thing we are seeing an awful lot of are these strange clusters of gems. That look awfully familiar, don't they? I'm being facetious, of course. They're extremely familiar because that's exactly where that horse demon came from. But my goodness, those gems. Wouldn't it be nice if we can call them our own? I think so. These clusters are far, far too tempting. I'm going to tell you that much right now. Downright tantalizing, I say. Well, our dwarves are tough. We can obviously handle a demon. Plus, what are the chances a demon would even come out of one of these things anyways? We were able to crack open a couple before with no problem whatsoever. So what could it hurt to do one more, especially with our dwarves so highly skilled these days? Yeah, let's do it. We'll get Tinny to head home, grab a pick, and come back out. Everyone else stay sharp, just in case. Okay, dwarves, find your places and get ready. Tinny is working her way up as we speak, carving a ramp, accessing this gem cluster from the top. Remember, that's the safest way we've found to crack into these things. Shh. Here we go. Hey, okay. It was empty. Easy enough. Well, these gems are ours. Excellent. Bunch of diamonds. Pretty cool. Wanna do another? There's plenty out here. Yeah, let's get to it, dwarves. Careful. Careful now. Find your places, steal yourselves. Tinny is working her way up once again. Hey, it was empty, again. Wonderful. No fire, no magma, nothing. You love to see it. And I mean, we're on a roll, aren't we, dwarves? We got that gem madness setting in. It's a dwarven instinct. There's no stopping us now. Find your places, and... Hey! Empty again, wonderful. I think there's a few more out there, too. Let's keep these diamonds coming in, eh, dwarves? And let's have a look. Hey, like we're a bunch of pros or something. My goodness. We fully realize we're pushing our luck here, but it is paying off mightily. And as such, one more couldn't hurt, right? I'm starting to think about what we could do with these diamonds. We made that round of rings for the dwarves earlier, but I'm thinking we should fashion a new round of rings, each embedded with a gem. Maybe each with a gem from that particular cluster that the demon came out of. That'd be magnificent. Anyway, okay, find your places. Shh, here she goes. Good luck, Tinny. And... Yes, I'm leaving you off with a bit of a cliffhanger this time. Sorry, not sorry, I enjoy it. I think it's funny. Welcome to the end of the episode where we're going to be talking about some behind the scenes things, and I do have a load of things I want to talk about, but unfortunately this time my list is not very extensive. I forgot to take notes, which is terrible. But yeah, one of the big things I'd like to mention right now is that ballista incident from last episode. Remember, the bolt missed the demon when we fired it 3 times. A lot of speculation down in the comments, but a couple of smart dwarves pointed out something that seems to track with what I know of Dwarf Fortress. I forgot that that demon was knocked prone because of a spinal injury in the previous episode, and so that means that the creature was crawling on the ground. I think just the fact that it's crawling means that ballista bolts will not affect it. Anything crawling will just go underneath the ballista arrows, which seems ridiculous because it is an enormous demon crawling down a narrow cavern tunnel, but Dwarf Fortress, you know, can't be perfect. I feel a little bad about laying so hard into Dwarf Fortress last episode now, but I mean, yeah, it's whatever, now we know. Actually, something that came out of the comments that I thought was particularly funny was apparently back in the day, there was like a Reddit thread or a forum post or something about somebody who was building a fortress, and in this fortress they had a bunch of really skilled fighters with spinal injuries, so they were kind of stuck down on the ground. And so they would send these dwarves out to fight goblins and stuff just on the ground. You know, these people would be crawling on the ground. But they'd also have ballistas, like, you know, behind shooting over their fighters' heads. The ingenuity of dwarves never fails to impress. And believe me when I say dwarven tactics get a lot crueler than that. I've heard that fortress overseers used to burn the skin off of their fighters, so their fighters no longer had nerves and could not feel pain. I don't know how you'd, like, submerge them in magma long enough to just get rid of their skin, but legends. They do inspire. Anyways. Yeah, so that's why we missed that demon. It was crawling around on the ground and the bolts just went over top. This makes me extremely hopeful that we could actually use this ballista corridor in the future against forgotten beasts or maybe even other demons if we found them. Very, very exciting. Another really interesting thing I discovered in this episode was dwarven needs. You know, I've really, it's gonna sound ridiculous, but I've been playing the game now for like 12 years and I've really never focused all too hard on certain dwarven needs. Mostly it's just frustration's fault, you know, kind of like, okay, like for example, there's a pretty common dwarven need to acquire an object. Now, what does that mean? I'm gonna think as a Dwarf Fortress player that it means they want to possess something. So it's like, what do they want, something in their room? Put a piece of furniture in there? I know that doesn't fix that need. Okay, so nix that. A bunch of the dwarves in this episode had clothing. They got new clothing. They acquired new clothing, and that didn't seem to do it either. Okay. I have seen dwarves in the past wearing like rings or amulets and that sort of stuff, but like, how do you get them to pick these up, and does that even solve the need? Turns out, yes, that is what solves it, I guess. So what I did was make a bunch of rings, those steel rings. So I just had plain old rings, okay, 7 of them. And then what I did was set up 3 small stockpiles, and each of those stockpiles would accept no bins whatsoever. I also made sure to have no other ring accepting stockpiles in the entire fortress, so they could only be placed in one of these 3 stockpiles, okay? And then what I did was attach each of these stockpiles to each other in sort of a triangle. Okay, so we have stockpile A, B, and C. You can go in and say stockpile A gives items to B, and then B gives them to C, and then C back to A. So it's kind of a loop like that, and if dwarves see an item in one of those stockpiles, they automatically try to go and like give it to the next stockpile. So it creates a loop, you know, they just go and they pick up these items and they bring it to the next stockpile in a little triangle. And if they have the need to acquire an object, then there's a small chance that they'll take the item for themselves when they're bringing it to the next pile. I have witnessed that need become fulfilled when this happened, and also saw several of the dwarves get these rings and take them for themselves. Now, something I saw on the wiki was that these items can't be placed in bins for this to work. I don't know if that's true or not. It seems awfully silly that a dwarf could pick up a ring and bring it to a stockpile and then take the item for themselves and have that need fulfilled, but if they're trying to put in a bin, then it just doesn't work. I say it seems awfully silly, but that does seem perfectly Dwarf Fortressy. Also, I'm going to assume that this also works for amulets, crowns, and bracelets as well, but I do not know. Also, I saw some stories online that this will work with coins, like dwarves will take the coins for themselves, and this will also fill the need, but I'm a little dubious about that. I'm not sure. But this is why we test things. All I know is that if you set up 3 stockpiles like this without bins and use rings, then it will work. I also mentioned in the episode that Queen Bee and the Crab did not take rings for themselves, but they also don't have the need to acquire an object, so I don't know if they will. This is all first-hand info right here. Stuff that I tested in the game and know for a fact that it seems to work. But you know, I could be wrong about it too. It is terribly easy to misread things in this game. I really wish dwarves would just generate tasks to like help themselves from time to time. Like, you know, what if a dwarf had a task to acquire an object? Like when they're idling or something like that, they'll just kind of like pop up with this idea like, I'd really like to acquire an object, and then just go get the object. I'd much rather have that than a dwarf going downhill and eventually start, you know, punching other dwarf to death or becoming melancholic or something like that. You know, it's Dwarf Fortress. It's just frustrating. I get worried for these dwarves in particular. All I know is that if Dwarf Fortress starts being Dwarf Fortress to these dwarves right here, I'm gonna be a little more upset even. We shall see. I'm gonna be throwing a tantrum by the end of this. Goddamn dwarves. Anywho, my bearded bastards, I thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna start wrapping it up here. I hope you had fun today, and I certainly hope to see you next time here in Locum Cor Zugable Lokokun Obak, Spearcavern, the grand granite shrine of pillars. And until then, you bearded bastards.